Changes? Seeing none, all in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that passes. Thank you. Item 2, discussion and possible action on the proposal from Adafix Holdings for 4 residential buildings and a multi-tenant commercial building on the East Thomas Street remnant parcels between Cleveland Avenue and McCleary Street. Sean, would you like to get us going?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman Neal. This is an item that had come before Economic Development back in March of this year. At that time, it was referred back to Community Development, and there's been some continuing conversations with the developer, as well as a community meeting, informational meeting that was held last month. The project itself is for a $7 million development of multifamily housing on 14 parcels, remnant parcels along Thomas Street that exist from the Thomas Street reconstruction project that was done over the last several years. An RFP was put out in February of this year. This was one of 2 proposals that were received. It was my understanding, and prior to when I was in this role, it was determined to be the proposal that was the best use for the property and provided the most value to the city. The project is for 34 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units in a series of 4 buildings. There is a commercial building that's also associated with the project, and the value, I'm sorry, let me back up here. The developer is requesting the properties for $1 apiece. The value that the city assigned to each of the 14 parcels is $9,000, so for a total of a little over $120,000 for all the properties in total. There was also a request for some TIF financing, 10% TIF financing on the project. Unfortunately, this TIF district has expired its expense period in May of this year, again, after the proposal was already received. The information appears in your packet. The developer, Jason Blanker, is here tonight via WebEx to be able to answer questions from the committee. Also, there was, I guess I made mention of a community meeting that was held on August 17th, 2 Mondays ago. About 60 people had attended that meeting, and there's a variety of information in your packet from community members who provided some feedback about the project, mostly in regard to the price, some with the design, and some with past Blinker project experience as well.
Sean, in looking at the item in our packet, it seems that the commercial building, there weren't still particulars on the value of that building worked into this, or am I mistaken on that?
Correct, yeah, as of this point.
Because, we've been talking about a $7 million project, but that would be, on top of that would be the commercial building, right?
That's included within the whole cost, but we don't have separate, I don't know if
Okay,
Mr.
it's not
Blanker
been broken out then?
Yeah, I don't know if Mr. Blanker can give some details on how much of that is for the commercial facility and how much is for the residential, but the total is $7 million.
Mr. Blanker, were you able to hear us?
Yeah, I heard you. I believe that commercial build, I don't have the exact figures in front of me, but I believe that commercial parcel was probably $1 million to $1.3 million, somewhere in there for that commercial part of it, and the remainder will be in the townhomes and the additional garages for the townhomes.
It's a relatively small footprint at that corner, right?
Yes, it's not a very big building at all, no.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Did I see a hand? Alder McElhenney had her hand up, I think. No? Oh, just swatting at flies. Watson, please.
I saw in the packet that it was mentioned that 186,000 annual tax revenue is projected. How are those figures generated?
That was just based off of the $7 million project value and then the 2019 property tax or property tax rate for the city.
Alder Rasmussen?
Thank you. A couple of things I think we're going to have to weigh here with this proposal. When it first came in, we wrestled a little bit with the idea of, TID incentives, assuming they were even still available. But we also wrestled with a little bit about the land sale price, knowing that on all of the other parcels that we've approved, for similar type construction, they are leasing up almost as fast as they can get them built. And so, that said, incentives of any type really are a struggle, I think are going to be a struggle for us. And a lot of the public feedback that we received seems to diametrically oppose the sale of the land for $1. And so if we were to look at a market price for that land, roughly at $9,000 per lot, that puts us at a sale price on the land of $126,000 at least. And then, separate from that, there was a volume of public feedback that despises the density and the design. So even if people would come and go from the backside of this building and use Emter for their entry and exit point, I think that the way the new Thomas Street is built, it's equipped to handle that. But I also think that, we need to balance, in some cases, the opinion of the residents that are going to be affected by it, by the raw economics. And I think if we were going to look at it strictly in terms of tax base, we definitely want $7 million of development in that corridor to offset the investment that's been made in the infrastructure and in the acquisitions. But, prior to this meeting, in between our two meetings, I did have a conversation with Interim Director Ann Worth about the idea of, single-family homes and whether those are an option. And since we already own the land, without a second RFP, the Community Development Department could endeavor to place 5 or 6 single-family homes similar to the ones that they've built in other areas of town on parcels that we've acquired, and put them up for sale. And then they've got a couple of them on Sherman Street, they've got some in the downtown area, they're nice looking, and there's a variety of plans, they don't all look the same. So I think if the neighborhood is committed to single-family homes that are affordable, that may be a better option than such a dense development.
I was thinking about the project that was done on West Sherman with the 4 houses out there. And I just wanted to check something here. Four houses. This was done with a local real estate outfit. Bought those 4 lots for at $750 per parcel, for $3,000. And that, when it went through ED, it only passed 3-2, and I think because there was some concern about aesthetics or, where this driveway is positioned and that sort of thing. But eventually it went through, and it went through council without a whole lot of controversy and, not a lot of pushback from the neighborhood, and people seem happy with what happened because it fits, aesthetics notwithstanding. If you don't feel it's the exact look that you want in the neighborhood, still it fits, and it went by pretty much without a hitch. I hearken back to that, and be great if we had that kind of solution to this. The idea of fair market value, I'm a little concerned about hog tying ourselves and taking away the ability to negotiate and have incentives to get to where we want to be. But I'm also not a big fan of the $1 thing unless there's a whole lot of risk involved and a whole lot of but-for involved, where we see that it was a good investment. So, those things concern me. $180,000 of, tax, revenue is important. Is that the number?
186.
Yeah, 186. Hate to overlook that. I like to have the ability to work with, proposals, developers, and negotiate and get to something that shows some sort of ROI that we can all live with. So, okay, I've got 3 people looking to speak now. Honor system, who was first? Mr. Killian, would you like to take it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think my colleagues make some good points, and Alder Rasmussen and Chair Neal, you had brought up kind of public sentiment, and I think really we had the opportunity in this process, and I think it was a positive step forward to have a public involvement process. And I think it was a neat experience for us, and I hope I'm not paraphrasing some of your sentiments incorrectly, Mr. Blinker, but I think even the developer perhaps thought it would be positive to have that type of event and input prior to an RFP and proposal, so that things of a development nature can sync with things that align with community needs and desires. And I just have a few comments on that. And Mr. Fitzgerald, I think you did an excellent job summarizing the citizen input and the written input. And I would be eager to hear kind of what you thought some of the main concerns were from the public involvement, and if there was kind of a predominant goal of residents. My takeaway was that many residents at the public input meeting had in fact desired kind of affordable single-family homes. That was something, a recurring sentiment, and I think the topic of tax base and ROI, it's nothing to dismiss, but I think that first and foremost, we should prioritize our neighborhoods and communities. So I think getting the public input was critical, and the second step in that process that would be positive would be heeding the public input. And if there are residents here tonight, I know there are some in the audience, if they would like to give their input, I'd certainly be eager to hear it as the district representative. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alder Larson, as a visitor, I'd have to ask you, just give us your address and then go ahead.
Yes, I'm speaking tonight as a citizen standing here. Lou Larson, 904 South 21st Place and 216 Thomas Street. Frankly, I would rather not have a $1 million multifamily home right next to my home. I would not want to see that property. I paid fair market value for my property. I expect the properties around it to go for fair market value as well. And also, I would not want to see the neighborhood that I own property in, that where my family lives, turn into something it's not. And to echo Alder Killian's sentiment, instead, we need to think about, you're looking at possibly $180,000 in tax revenue, but comes a time when you need to put the citizens' needs first over the dollars. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I think we have some options tonight. I mean, obviously, if the committee, likes the proposal the way they saw it, they could certainly select it. They could, if they want another RFP for different proposals, and perhaps more closely articulate what it is that we're looking for before people propose, that's always an option. But if we're interested in the option that Interim Director Worth brought forward with community development placing homes on the property, the city already owns the property. They don't have to go to an RFP process for that, and they have a variety of different house plans that they could already use. So if that option is something that we favor and that we believe those neighbors will favor as well, then I would think that our action that we would take then is to, reject both proposals that came in from the RFP, and then direct the department to pursue the placement of those homes using their plans that they've already got.
Okay, thank you. Alder McElhenney.
Thank you. I'm hearing about single-family homes, but I'm hearing two different divergent. I'm hearing about CDA homes, I would assume, and I'm hearing about we want people to have affordable single-family homes. I'd like to know, that keeps coming up in this area, and I'd like to know, do we have builders or contractors that are saying, I want to put up small family homes? Because that could be a pie in the sky. I want to know that that's a possibility. And I guess, when I hear things like the return on investment is not important and the citizens' needs first over dollars, I agree with that. But it can't be either or. I'm very strong that we need to increase tax base here because your citizens, my citizens, you, me, anybody who pays taxes, the more we have equalized value, the more our taxes go down, and I think your residents would appreciate that as well. So why can't we have, I always hear, since I've joined ED, either or. And I don't want to hear any more either or. I want to hear, how can we do both? And I think we can. But there just seems to be a loggerhead all the time, and it's frustrating to me as a new member of this committee that there is a way to do both. And if we need to work together, and do we have contractors we can talk to who build single-family homes? Would they be interested? And if that, what is the price range, and what do they think? I mean, I'd like to explore all those, but I really hate to always it's always the same arguments since I started in April. It's, citizens, what they don't want this versus return on investment and tax base. And I think that we could handle both. I think we can, I don't think it should be an either or suggestion. I'm not married to this to this proposal. I'm all for single-family homes. I think we took homes out of there. Let's put some homes back. I'm all for that. But has that been, my question back to ED, has that been at all looked at? Do we have people that are interested in doing like a smaller footprint home?
Well, I could just harken back again to the West Sherman Street, the 4 houses that went up there. A local real estate outfit, took that on, but they also negotiated with the city for a good price for the lots. I mean, this is what I keep, struggling with is we have to find this ability to have incentives and have negotiations without giving away the farm, and then achieve what you're trying to, achieve as an end goal. And I think that happened out there. But if we had said no, each of those lots has to go for $12,000, those 4 houses wouldn't be sitting there right now. This is why we have to have the ability to work with people and negotiate and get to an end. So, okay, again, honor system. I'm not sure who's keeping track of who was up next with the blue lights. But okay, Alder Watson, go ahead.
So I have 2 questions. First question is with regards to the safety of the property. That was brought up in a lot of the residents' concerns. I mean, if we did single-family homes, how safe is that land? Like, is there contamination issues? And then I guess my second question was, what were the rents going to be in these apartments? People talk about them being really high, but I didn't see anywhere about how much the rents were going to be
How much the rents would be
for the apartments.
for the apartments?
And then what, has there been market analysis on what's sort of the going rates for homes? I mean, is this the community development project? I mean, that's something that we could.
I'm sure Mr. Blanker I think we do have that information, but sir, if you'd like to just go ahead and chime in.
Yeah, I guess, we're looking at rents probably being in that $800 to $1,300 a month, depending on the number of bedrooms and the size of the units. We're trying to have a variety of different sizes and unit configurations available to meet, I guess, a fairly wide range of rent rates, knowing that certainly not the high end, upper end. There seems to be plenty of those on the market currently, so we're trying to hit more of that middle of the market by having a little bit more variety of unit sizes and styles available.
And I'm sure, the feeling right now is that the market will bear that. But as, landlords, if you will, if you found that those price points weren't working, you probably have to look at adjusting them downwards if needs be to fill them up.
That, absolutely, and the cost, the rent rates are basically set by the cost of construction. You need to recoup. It's just like paying your mortgage payment back. There's a certain amount of money that needs to go back to the funding source to be able to justify the project. So at some point, you can only drop the rent so much, and before it's losing proposition. So yeah, I mean, we look at that and try to balance the rent rates out to, certainly what is fair and reasonable based off of the construction costs, and every additional dollar that goes into construction costs means we've got to have the rents to justify that.
Thank you. Alder Watson, did you get your answer?
I can address your question about the environmental integrity of the property as well.
It's your mic.
Yeah, I can address your question about the environmental integrity of the property as well, and the construction being proposed is for facilities that are on slab. There was not going to be any kind of a foundation dug into the ground, but the developer is requesting that the city conduct at least a phase 1 environmental test on each of the properties there, and knowing the history of some of the concerns in the neighborhood there, that would be an effort that the city would be taking on.
Okay, thank you. Who is next? All right, Alder Killian.
I think we have, Mr. Chair, some residents who may like to speak. Is that?
That's all, is that all?
Well, yeah, I defer my time to the community if that's
Okay,
possible.
very good. Sir? Yeah, just
Hi.
give us your name and address, please.
Hi, Larry Dasso, 117 River Street. This is going to be happening in my backyard, so I'm a little concerned. In regards to the single-family homes that you were talking about, I was just kind of wondering, was this advertised, this land advertised to other builders besides Blinker? That's one question I have.
They responded to an RFP, a public
Okay.
request for proposals.
Okay, I was just wondering about that. And then the proposal that I got, I just don't see where this is going to be even fit in these lots area, let alone being functional with 20 units back there. That's 20 families. Now, according to that proposal, you have the alleyway there. That's going to be their driveway, a single road with 20 families going in and out of there. It's impossible to, with that pond that's down there, it's impossible to make a 2-lane road right there. It just won't fit. You know, it doesn't, how can it be functionable? Another thing, the way they have a parking lot for their vehicles out front, but how is that all going to fit in there? It's impossible. It's not going to be functional, let alone for snow removal. What about that? Where are they going to push the snow? They can't push it in our yards. Are they going to put a fence up along the whole way? Or what, you know, none of that's in the proposal. I guess I want to know kind of what's going on there.
Okay, I
You know,
would,
the picture looks good,
Yeah.
but that's it. That's
But
all they have there.
it could be a little confusing to look at it, though, and figure out how it might work. Mr. Blanker, would you like to address those questions?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly took into account the dimensions and the parking. You know, there's more than adequate parking. The alleyway would be widened, at least on the parcels that we would own as part of, you know, part of this development. And it might not be a full 2 lanes wide, but it's also not a thoroughfare or a road. So it's an access point, and there's no through traffic going in there. It's basically the residents coming in and out, so.
20 families, 20 families in and out.
What was it?
I said 20 families in and out of that road, single lane road. How is that functional? You know, that is impossible.
Well, private driveways do not need to conform to the same standards as streets do as far as width. and
Yeah, I figured you'd say that.
Blocks and curb and gutters, so there's still enough room to get two cars to pass each other on a private drive.
No.
Okay, well, there's no need to go back and forth, you know,
Right.
like that, so. Anything else?
No, not right now.
All right, thank you. I've got some blue lights on the committee's part first, Ms. Ryan. Who's the first blue light over here? Alder Rasmussen?
Thank you. The proposal that I mentioned where we were talking about single-family homes that would be perhaps built by community development would also be slab on grade. Now, obviously, no basements dug. You know, they too are concerned about, you know, perception and concerns about those soils as well. So they had talked about that. Those houses, though, even if they're put up by community development, aren't necessarily rentals, you know, like some of the CDA housing is. some of those homes, much like a Habitat format, are built and then sold. And the ones on Sherman Street that I was referring to are actually quite a ways east of the ones that Chairman Neal was referring to. 502 and 504 Sherman are two of those homes that were built by community development and sold to private owners. And they really are aesthetically very nice houses. They're two very different designs that sit next to one another. And so in my conversation with Ann, she thought that you could probably get 5 or maybe 6 on the entire expanse. So you'd have a little bit of yard, you'd have fewer vehicles coming and going. I mean, they've already got, they wouldn't have to plan it from the ground up because they've already done these things before. And, they would then engage contractors to build them. So you wouldn't have to go out to the market and find, the proposal on the western half of Sherman Street between 17th and 21st, that development was undertaken by a local realtor on a for-profit basis. Obviously, if we were going to seek to put homes from community development on those sites, we've already got the land, we've already got the plans, and so the process that we would need to go through is, I would say less extensive. You're not out on a search finding a contractor or willing to build 5 single-family homes on spec. You put them up and then you put them up for sale. And so some of that risk then is absorbed by us as the developer, because you're not going to have to go out to the market and find, a contractor that in this market, middle of a pandemic, is interested in putting up 5 spec houses. So there's a little bit of, added safety, I would say, there for the neighborhood if we were going to go that route, because, we already have kind of a proven track record with the construction of those homes and, the successful sale and filling of those houses.
Alder Watson, did you have your light on, or, oh, it's Alder Larson, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. 2 things. Those 4 houses that they built over on Sherman Street, I happen to live right over there, and immediately, I believe 3 of the 4 are already occupied. I think only 1 is empty. And the second thing is, getting back to this proposal here, is this 20% that was supposed to be financed through TIF, 20% of $7 million is like $1.4 million. And I asked at the neighborhood meeting, who was going to absorb this cost now that the TIF money is not there, and nobody seemed to have an answer for it. So I really think before this proposal should be voted on, they should find out who's going to absorb this extra $1.4 million in TIF money that's not there. Is the developer going to absorb that? I asked him, he didn't know. Is the city going to develop another TIF district, a mini TIF district to afford that? They didn't know. So that's what I mean. There's $1.4 million in limbo here, and I think before we vote on this, or before this proposal is voted on, this needs to be figured out first, where this money is going to come for. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Ryan, name and address, please.
All right. Deborah Ryan, 702 Elm Street. I attended the neighborhood meeting as well, and was glad that I did attend and was there to have a pretty good turnout of what people's concerns are. I guess over the years, I've attended on my own some of the different meetings that the Tipple administration had, as well as Milky, and that it just seemed the residents really, in my opinion, were treated like second-class citizens. They weren't given the forefront. They did not have Alder Dave Nunning working to advocate for them, and so they kind of, a number of times, came out of desperation and a crisis kind of debate on the city council level. But I wanted to mention that the former Habitat president of the council for Habitat for Humanity did bring up about Habitat homes. The city has in the past had certain lots, some were on Kickbush, I think some were over on the northwest side now as well. And we're looking at building modular homes with students from the different high schools working on that during the year, and then dropping the modular homes on the lot. and that they needed a lot that did not have many trees as a way to do that. They preferred to have a few lots in a row so that they could have some of their equipment and trailers in that to be building affordable housing. And in this location on Thomas Street, this would be ideal, also being on the transit line. One of the questions that was brought up that was not answered, and I do think is pertinent to somewhat what neighbors not be aware of, that there was a major changing in the rules of looking at the ordinances and inspections and how much of a setback, and that for the Blinker properties, to me, it just seems like it's 90% of the lot is taken up by house, and you have postage stamps yards. And that, and one of the neighbors asked, well, what happened to the setbacks? How come they're so close to one another? And I understand if you're going to be building dense housing with a center type of brick or center wall and having a number of developments, but here in our area, you really don't need that. We are not Madison. We are not Chicago, where lots are going for $250,000 for a standard lot. People were expressing as part of their concerns is, why can't we get back to having a kind of a normal size house on a lot, which in my impression would be maybe 50 to 60% takes the house and the garage, and that you have a yard for kids to play, a playground, growing plants and that. And it just seems that building these newer kind of modular with a zero lot line next to these standard homes looks a little weird. And that how do you handle then, even for these properties, if you go to single family? Are you going to have standard, well, what is the standard single-family home lots that used to be? Was it 20 feet or 25 feet from the lot line? Where I think that's what people are looking for is, yes, that I have some room, and that also for fire protection, how would you get to these homes if they burned and the potential of a home next to it being a potential fire tragedy because it's so densely populated. So I think there's a number of things that need to be considered, but it came very loud and clear. The neighbors wouldn't mind habitat homes, and with habitat homes, there is sweat equity. Normally, the city has got involved in offering the lot at a discount. They've had donated supplies, so that it's actually built at a fraction or maybe 50% of the costs, but when taxed at 100%. And so to have more of a vision. But the neighbors did say clearly, they wanted you to say no and to start over with an RFP of single-family homes. And when you look at the density of the traffic, to me, it looks like you're talking about maybe 3 homes. And the density of traffic for 3 homes is not much compared to if you're talking about 20 or 20 more. But I would encourage you to go back to the RFP, and in some instances, when you're looking at single-family homes, I think we need to consider going back to the old setbacks and not cram 5 houses on 2, or 5 houses on 3 lots, when it really should be 3 homes with a yard on 3 lots. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Blinker, before I ask the committee to, offer up a motion of whatever kind, a question for you. I mean, you attended the neighborhood gathering. I was there as well. And also, you've heard so far tonight comments, and I still have a couple of blue lights, so those aren't done. But you're hearing things, and, I'm looking at what's in our packet, which is essentially what was originally proposed. Is your position now to pretty much, just go with what was originally proposed, or are you in a position to get with staff and, rethink your ideas? Because, I mean, that might impact, what our committee might think about doing here tonight.
Yeah, I guess if I might offer up my comments throughout this whole process a little bit and give a little bit of perspective, I guess, from my point of view. Typically when an RFP comes out, I guess the assumption has been made on our part, on the developer's part, that maybe these meetings had already happened, and obviously they hadn't, and some feedback, some guidance or direction would be given prior to an RFP coming out. In this case, on the previous Thomas Street project, there was an RFP that was put out. It was basically a conceptual idea that was, and again, I guess I'm naive to the fact that I don't know what the entire process is, but there were some concepts of what the Economic Development Committee or someone thought should go within those remnant parcels. When this RFP came up, there was probably a lot less than the first part of the first phase of Thomas Street. And I guess our assumption was that it was to be a continuation of more of the same, if you will. So that's why we came up with the proposal that we came up with, because it was, I guess, in keeping with what had already been done on phase one. From my point of view, from being maybe not a resident of Wausau, but a resident of a community, I would certainly want my voice heard when it comes to my tax dollars and how those are spent or invested within the community. So, my recommendation from a citizen would be going forward prior to an RFP with public input, so that developers have a better direction of what the community wants. And I realize that sometimes people don't always know what they want until they see what they like and what they don't like, right? So in a way, I'm fully prepared for this proposal to be completely shot down, but I'm hoping that everybody, the community and Economic Development Committee and the Common Council, have taken something away from this process and an opportunity to redefine what that process is, to make it more transparent for everyone and I guess more palatable for everybody going forward. So, at this point in time, I know what my odds are, so at this point, I'm fine with the development committee shooting this down, and we'll come back, and hopefully there'll be another RFP put forward that we can make a proposal on that maybe has a little bit more definition and clarity of what the expectation is in that area.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your candor. We have some citizens lined up to speak with us. Please give us your name and address and go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mary Klaus. I live at 314 Porter Street. I guess I just wanted to come up here and say, I bought my home. I put my money in my home. And I see renters across the street, they don't put money in their homes because it's not their home. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Bruce Keynes. I live at 118 River Street. I've been a full-time, year-round, lifelong resident of Wausau. I've lived in my home since '98 in my current district. And I'd like you to take a look at the back wall and see the line on your sign. Service to our citizens. Everybody I talk to in my neighborhood is overwhelmingly against, having this development put in there, shoved down our throats. And I thank Tom for bringing this to our attention so that we know what is planned. The city of Wausau needs to realize that you're spending the taxpayers' money. That's us. And so you should ask us what we want, what we need, what we would like to see. You took out single-family houses to make Thomas Street a lot better access, so people from the other end of town can go shop in Rib Mountain, but they don't stay on our road. And put up single-family houses. That's what you took out. Put them back. Don't shove, and this development right 50 yards away from my house. 2 10-family units.
there's no parking, there's no place. Most of the people, there's 2 cars per family now. 20 families, that's 40 cars. Where are you going to park them? There's no place in that footprint. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Hi, my name is Terry Killian. You've got an X right here. My name is Terry Killian. I live at 133 East Thomas Street. And I already do have my voice at the council regarding this development. But when I heard this woman come up here and break out in tears because she said, I invest money in my home, renters don't. I heard something at the community meeting that I did talk to Mr. Blanker about afterwards. And what was, Mary Tao brought up the fact that what's going to happen to the value of these single-family homes once the apartments are built. She said people are concerned about it. They've invested themselves in it for 40 to 50 years. And what I heard was, well, the value of the area is going to increase. The value, and you're talking about tax value, but I have been a real estate broker in this area for 30 years, and I want you to try and sell a single-family home next to a large apartment complex. People don't want it. So you should be thinking about that wherever you're developing throughout the city, not just on Thomas Street. It's very, very difficult to sell a single-family home where there is an apartment complex. And my heart went out to her, otherwise I would not have spoken to you, but that is something you should consider.
Thank you. Mr. Gisselman, how nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Gary Gisselman, 319 Park Avenue, Wausau, Wisconsin. Again, we see the, while I sat on the city council, again, had great issues with Blanker and his, Deb's used the word cram, and I like that word. It's sort of cramming a lot of different development into properties that really don't fit. It doesn't fit the community, it doesn't fit the neighborhood, and I think that I thank the residents of the neighborhood. Finally, with the city is able to listen to them and move on. I think that at times in the past we weren't necessarily able to do that, and I thank the neighborhood. And in looking at the alley, that it's a one-lane in and out. It's an alley, and that's all it is with regard to that, to the development between River Street and Thomas Street. But if there's some questions with regard to the development and the future here, let's take a look. I mean, we have gone in the past with regard to high-density housing. We've sort of skipped over affordable housing. We do not know what a policy on affordable housing is in this city. And I think that we should take this time and look at those things, because as we go forward, we can maybe not only in addition to this site, to the Thomas Street, but we can set some plans for with regard to how we want to proceed in the future. The issue of affordable housing, sure, it might cost the city a little bit of money, or a lot of money, but I think that the way wages are in this city, I think that we have to seriously think about how we march forward with affordable housing and our policy towards it. And I think that if we look at other areas, the density, do we really want this city to be looking with high-density areas in the neighborhoods that don't fit? And I think that we should really take a close look and maybe set the future here for what we can do to make this a better community and a better neighborhood for the people that live in those neighborhoods throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Madam Mayor?
Hello, thank you. So I think you've heard a lot of things today and also probably the last month. And what would help me, and I think our community development staff, is that instead of maybe voting up or down on this specific proposal, you gave us some direction on what you're looking for. Is it that single-family housing? You know, we heard about Habitat for Humanity and all of that. You know, our staff has kind of gone in a million different directions on this after that meeting. Like, could we accommodate this? Can we do that? And they've come up with some solutions. But what would help is direction from this committee on what should we be bringing back. So before you kind of just do up or down on this, I think it'd be good to digest what you've heard and maybe make a recommendation of how we go forward.
Reactions from the committee? Yes, sir, go ahead. Your name and address,
My
please.
name is Vishai Gillette. I live on 10th, 08 South Thomas Street. I heard a little bit from every single one of you. I listened, and I just want to hear my voice in front of you and speak to you loudly, okay? Thomas Street, where I live, I can't even go across to go on the other side of the road. That was blocked. Second, these people do not make that kind of income like you guys predicted. We're making minimum wage, you know, dishwasher, you know, doing Walmart and stuff like that. Don't make that kind of income like the apartment you guys put up, $800 to $1,200 a month. You tell me they make that kind of money, okay? We're living paycheck from paycheck. And these developer here, I think it's a wrong decision. Why I said that? Because they're there for $1. Open market for everyone to bid for these lands. And like me, you, everybody here could bid for it. Who got the highest bid? Take it. Don't for $1. Come on, I got $5 right now for property. I'll give it to you. I'm trying to get fair shake. That's all I want. Fair shake, apple to apple. Not this or that and stuff like that. Come on, be fair. I'm not just standing here in front of you to make a fool out of myself. I'm here as a human being. I'm here to represent my district. I lived there for a long, long time. And I talk to my neighbors and my colleagues, my friends, and they feel the same way. You guys, please, if what you guys are doing, you have to live with your life, okay? You're gonna live it. If you make that decision, you have to live it and eat it. And you can't move back. Now we can't move back with those apartments that are there right now, okay? Hey, you want some money? I'll get you money. You want me to sell me $1 right now? I'll build you an apartment. And I'll tell you something. I don't go make those pay $800 to $1,200. I'll make them pay like $300, $400, $500 because they can afford it. Not because, oh, this is race, or there's no such thing as race. There's no color involved. What they can afford, that's what I'm going at. I've been poor all my life. And I see all of you guys are here. You know the answer. You have to make that decision yourself. I'm not here because I want to be here. I'm here because I'm frustrated. Okay? For that $1, that's what I'm coming at. $1.
Well, you're not the only one.
Yep, that's all I got to say. Please, think it over and make that decision. Take step back sometimes and, you know, and then do what you got to do. Do the right thing. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. You know, given that and what we've heard here tonight, even what we've heard from Mr. Blinker, I think the best step for us to make as a committee is to reject both proposals received in the RFP and direct our community development department that in time for our next meeting in October, to bring us a plan for single-family homes using their program funds and their programs. And let us see what the economics of that looks like. You know, what do they have for funding? What do they have for plans, availability, timelines? I'd like to know really what they can offer us. I mean, we don't have Ann with us this evening. She's not here. So, but next month, I'd like to see her and the ideas that she and Tammy Stratz can put together to, find a way to utilize this property in maybe a more traditional way. I mean, in the past, we have taken sites like this, remnant sites or parcels where a home has burned and the lot's been donated to the city or whatever, and we've put fresh housing on it, but it's a single home. So I would like to look at that approach for this and have them bring us a plan that they've created for our next meeting.
I would take that as a motion, but we
Yes,
do have
it
another
is.
person that would like to speak, so come on up, please.
Can we get a second first, though?
Okay, we have a second. Thank you. Yes, ma'am, your name and address.
My name is Vicki Harness. I live at 1240 South 9th Avenue, 2 blocks south of Thomas Street. I'm kind of repeating a lot of things that have already been said. One thing I did hear that I was concerned was that the Thomas Street traffic issue has been resolved, and I would tell you it has not. You do not want to try to get on or on Thomas Street anytime during what you might consider rush hour, 6 in the morning till probably 8:30, or from 2 o'clock when Colby gets out till about 3:30. It's impossible because the density is so great. And to put that many additional family units on that end of Thomas Street by the bridge is, to me, just an astronomical mistake. I think the density issue is a problem. I think the setbacks are an issue. With the buildings that already took place on Thomas Street, to put 4 families in one city lot is, I just don't understand how that was ever even approved. But it happened and it's there, and so now we have to deal with it. But, so let's please not do that again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have had a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please
Could
say
you
aye.
please clarify the motion, please?
The motion was to reject both proposals received in the RFP, the one for Elder Sanctuary for parking and the Blanker proposal both, and then direct the community development staff to bring us a plan to fill those lots with 5 to 6 single-family homes using the plans that they have used before in time for our next meeting so that we can see how that would lay out.
Does this include the proposed commercial lot?
Well, it was all part of the same proposal.
Yes,
So
but in terms of the single-family housing,
we could re-RFP Thomas and McCleary at some point if we wanted to look at that site separately. I feel like any commercial possibilities on the south side of the street should be totally separate from this housing on the north side.
I would support that.
The north side is really what caused the stir. So
Yeah.
let's deal with the north side first, and
Yep.
if somebody still has an idea for Thomas and McCleary, we could consider that at some other time.
Okay, thank you. Alder McElhenney.
I agree with that. I agree with as a second.
Then,
Okay, very good. All right, I saw your hand up, yes? We're going to have a vote here pretty quick, but
I just wanted to say regarding McCleary.
come on up so the mic can pick you up. I'm sorry.
Terry Killian, 133 East Thomas Street. It would seem as though that island that is on the side of the bridge, you can't turn there, so you obviously can't have a property there that is going to need good access. That would be an ideal place for parking for the Elder Sanctuary. They need additional parking. It is a problem in our neighborhood for them, and that would be a great place for parking for that sanctuary.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And none are. Okay, thank you very much. Good discussion. Mr. Blanker, I appreciate your patience and sticking with us through all this, and look forward to talking to you in the future.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Fitzgerald, do you have some updates for us?
Quite a lengthy list of updates here tonight. First item, just with the Wausau Center Mall planning, there's a desire to hold a joint meeting of the Economic Development Committee with the Finance Committee on September 22nd of this month. The board from WAS plans to come and talk about some of their plans moving forward, particularly as it relates to the demolition and any costs that the city may consider in its budget for 2021. So I don't know how you formally call those, but I guess put that on your calendar if you would. Regarding the November 3rd Economic Development Committee meeting, it's scheduled for the same date as the elections, and given the scope of the national presidential elections, the clerk's office, in my understanding, uses the council chambers here for some of the work that they need to do. And so there's a need to reschedule that meeting to another date. I don't know how you.
The best way to do that is to canvass the committee with email.
Okay.
That way they can just look at their calendars and everybody get back together and we come to a consensus.
Well, and our fallback date has always been the third Thursday, if we needed it as a backup. So, I mean, assuming we would have business to discuss even if there's items,
Okay.
could we consider that date? Because I think a lot of us have that open.
Sure, certainly. I'll check and see. I don't know how that falls in relation to whether it be a week before Thanksgiving or,
It's the 19th is
19th,
that
okay.
date.
Yeah, or simply the day after Election Day and
It's
see
the
if
week
there's
before.
openings there.
okay. We'll send out an
Yeah,
email
it's just
to the
get the email
committee
out and
to
we'll
check and see what
bang
the
it
best
around.
date would be. Great. The next couple of items on here are actually some items that we had originally talked about placing on the agenda for tonight, but in some meetings late last week with the committee chair, with the mayor, with some of the staff, it had been determined that some recent proposals received for, on a request for proposals should be ferreted out a little bit further in regard to the request for dollar land sales. I know that's been an issue that's emerged more and more recently, and so, community development staff has been directed to go back and work with these developers on, we know the approximate value of these properties that they're considering, and working with these folks who, again, had for the most part, submitted these proposals back previously under a different council, under a different administration, and maybe under a different way of doing things, and talk with them a bit about what they may consider as a fair rate for purchasing city-owned property, and revise any kind of city participation request so that it comes to this committee with, I guess, a little bit less debate. Mayor, did you want to add to that
Madam Mayor?
conversation?
Yeah, thanks. I guess this is one of those situations where I think it's going to be good for our staff to maybe put a little work in on the front end when we get those RFPs, so that we can kind of determine maybe what this committee and the council would find a little bit more palatable. But what would help us is that eventually if this committee kind of comes up with some criteria that you're looking for, maybe help guide that process a little bit. But in the meantime, we'll maybe put together these options when it comes, and so you understand what the payback is and things like that. We'll be very clear on that. So just want to keep you posted on that, because I feel like some of the RFPs just kind of come in hot and we're all reacting to it instead of maybe being able to kind of wrap our arms around it a little more and get a buttoned-up plan.
Thank you, Mayor. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. This is actually a discussion that we had with former Director Schock early in his tenure about what we want to see in terms of, the mechanics of a deal. And sometimes they do vary a little bit case by case, because if a site has environmental challenges, or if a site is extremely blighted, or if a project has, a huge job creation element, there are times when land for a dollar makes sense. And, I think it ties directly into the but-for test. But for a public-private partnership, that project cannot take flight. But once word got out in the business community that the city's giving away land for a dollar, well, who isn't going to come and be the next person to ask for land for a dollar? So I think when those requests come in, it's a little bit of a judgment call, but we have to use reasonable judgment. What risk does that person have? So if we look at the first projects that were put in on the riverfront where there was nobody down there, and those sites were environmentally challenged, and a lot of them needed cleanup, those for a dollar made sense. Now, that area is a proven winner. So the site that, as an example, that Cherry Tree was looking at, has a market value of $225,000. It isn't land that no one wants anymore. And so I think as areas evolve, it's hard for us to put together a set framework of saying, you know, we're only going to look at this, or we're never going to look at that. We need to know what the dynamics of the situation are. But if it's a property that has no challenges for a proposer that has limited risk, and they're asking for something for $1, it's a pretty good bet that we don't want to see that. You know, and I think that as we all work together a little more, we're going to get that feel. You know, I don't want every proposal we see to be a huge argument on the committee floor, but I don't think they have to be. But I think we just need to look for an element of, you know, reasonableness and justifying what these asks are. Because everybody wants, the human nature is that to maximize your profit, you want that acquisition price to be as low as it can go before you start building. And that's just the nature of the market. Now, our appetite isn't that. But, you know, I think as we're looking at proposals, when RFPs come in, we have to look at them rationally and look at what risk the person really has, what the benefit is for us, you know, what do we get in exchange, and how long does it take to get our money back? That's our return on investment. And sometimes they are a case-by-case approach. I mean, you can kind of set a framework, but it's really not a one-size-fits-all.
I've said it all along, and I will say it forever, because it just isn't. I mean, we look at everything on its relative merits, any kind of precedent involved, or any lack thereof. And, you know, I would trust staff to be able to, and for local developers particularly, who, you know, have heard the discussions over and over again, to know coming in, you know, where we might bend and where we wouldn't, you know, based on what are the situations involved. You know, also, you know, it was just, the word budget was thrown out here a little earlier this evening. And, you know, we've all seen the budget process where, you know, the red line goes across and a number of budget hopes and desires fall below that red line. And quite often, some of them are relatively moderate in terms of their need for money. But the money just isn't there. I mean, we've accounted for it all above the red line. Therefore, you know, this little playground can't get fixed, you know, or this little, you know, part of a park somewhere can't get fixed, or any other, you know, things that might cost $20,000 or $30,000. We just can't do it because that money isn't there. And I just think it's important for developers to know, you know, as investors in this community, that we have to be able to put money, you know, into our cash flow, into our budget revenues, even if it's small, because it'll add up, you know. So that's why, you know, $1 for a plot of land versus, you know, maybe $7,000 for that plot of land. I don't think that's going to ruin the profitability of that development, but that'd be $7,000 we can put into our operating budget. So I think this is important for us to have that kind of view when we, you know, entertain proposals coming in. We have to look at the short term and long term, and what is the situation, and then start, you know, bandying that about. Once it gets to committee, yes, less need for, you know, that birthing process. Then we can kind of like maybe haggle a few, you know, more minor particulars and move it along. So. My words. Go ahead, Mr. Killian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree that the more tightly it's nailed down, I think the less surprise and controversy may be attached to these things. One metric, in addition to some that Alder Rasmussen mentioned, which the League of Municipalities mentions when cities are selling city-owned property less than the market rate, is public purpose. And I believe that is a key metric or litmus test that would be positive to include in our discussion. And if we have that discussion, then I think it might make sense to ask the community and our residents, what does public purpose mean to you? I mean, what are components of that? Because I think that's also something that the community at times would like to have more of a stake in talking about. And I had actually contacted the League of Municipalities several months ago about this issue. And, one thing that was noted to me, and it's in their material as well, is that even if something would appear just kind of above board by our own standards and most legal standards, that does not rule out a potentially successful challenge by a taxpayer if city-owned land is sold under market rate. So I think that public purpose component and maybe letting the community in on that discussion would be highly positive. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fitzgerald?
Great.
Carry on?
So yeah, those conversations have been held last week with the 3 proposals that are out there right now. One is for Cherry Tree Dental, which you've seen before. Another is from Adafix Holdings for a proposal in the River Life District, which has been presented before. And then another one is also from Adafix Holdings for some housing on 2nd and 3rd Streets in the near north neighborhood. And they all were understanding of the fact that we would be bringing these back up at the October Economic Development Committee meeting with a more fully baked scope of city participation. So the next item was just an update on the Wausau Cares loan and grant program for small business. This is the Wausau Cares was set up using some CDBG money the city had as a result of federal government grants from COVID. The Federal CARES Act, and we've been administering this loan and grant program with McDevco during the past few months. At this point, they've awarded 21 grants totaling $1,500 each for a grand total of $31,500. There's another 21 grants that are in process right now, and there's still 7 grants that are available for businesses, small businesses, locally owned businesses based in Wausau to apply for, and they can apply for those going to mcdevco.org online. There's also been 6 loans awarded at this point for a total of $66,414. I think either at the October or November meeting, we'll have Vicki Resek from McDevco here to kind of give a recap of the entire Wausau Cares program and some of the successes that it achieved over the last couple of months in the post-pandemic environment. Diversified Companies is a manufacturer and industrial park that had requested an adjacent property to their facility in order to expand. That had come up in front of the entire city council last month. It was a matter that came before the Economic Development Committee back in October and December of last year. So it was a while ago and never had come before the council for approval, unfortunately. The request at the time and the matter that the council had discussed and voted on last month was a sale of a parcel that they were looking at for $1, and that was defeated 5-6. Community Development has gone back to the company and has been having some discussions with them about providing a purchase offer on the parcel that would be more aligned with council expectations. At this point, we can report that I guess they've given us the quote, they're considering their options, and we don't have anything definitive at this point yet, but Committee Chair Neal is aware of the conversations, and we had expressed that we'll let him know when something comes up in the event that this may be either a need for a special ED committee meeting or perhaps one that would be held in concert with the Joint Finance Committee meeting on September 22nd. Excuse me. And lastly, I wanted to bring everyone up to speed on the 1300 Cleveland environmental remediation, or I'm sorry, environmental testing process. If you recall, excuse me one second, if you recall at the August meeting, the committee had gone ahead with recommending phase 2 environmental testing on that site, the former incubator site. in the community and given some parameters for our engineering department in regard to the bids that they were putting out. The engineer for the city did put together a bid that went out in late August. The deadline for those proposals is September 10th. Shortly thereafter, the city is expecting that it'll select the environmental firm to conduct the scope of testing for the RFP, and that testing is expected to be done during the month of October. Excuse me. Those samples will then be sent to the lab with results expected back in mid to late November, and then that selected consultant will be compiling the information into a draft report to provide to the city for comment and review, and that is expected to take about 4 weeks and be available to the city by December. So just for a timeline for your purposes, we're expecting that by probably the January meeting of this committee, you'll be presented with that report of the Phase 2 testing from whoever is selected as a consultant. And at that point, there'll be a determination of whether this committee is able to go forward with recommending any of the development proposals, or if there's some remediation that needs to be done. At that point, the DNR will take over or take over management of the required activities at the site. So that's just an update. We'll continue to update the committee on this process at each meeting as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just one last thing. At the request of Alder Killian, for our next meeting, we'll be agendizing a preliminary discussion on the topic of environmental justice. And I'm hoping Mr. Killian would be able to provide us some prep material beforehand, but I also encourage everybody just sort of go ahead and Google your way around and find out what you can find and bring to the meeting in terms of questions or concerns or insights. So we'll be doing that for our October meeting. Anything else from the committee? I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, from Watson, and a second from Killian. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Aye, thank you.